through some fun stuff in my notes.
Excellent.
Yes.
I'm going to give my impression of a legal person.
Oh, I love it. We're going to have a lot of fun.
Explain the case, and then you can give me your notes, and then we'll just be off to the races.
Yeah.
We'll be off to the racists. Wait.
Oh, boy.
Basically,
right.
the last what is it? Line 19 goes really well with the rest of the discussion. So,
well, yeah, and then I put our topic in line 20, so we can just go speed right.
No, I like it.
Yeah, good. All right.
Y'all have fun now.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to start recording right now.
This podcast is made possible by listeners like you at patreon.com/acedetect. Offer void where prohibited. Your mileage may vary. Product may contain nuts.
This is the Daily Tech News for Friday, September 25th, 2015. I'm Tom Merritt. Joining me today, first time in a while, Mr. Darren Kitchen from hack5.org, HAK5.org. How you been, Darren?
Oh, man, Tom, it is so good to see you. It has been absolutely too long. And my apologies as I still have black nail polish on from the 20-year anniversary Hackers special on Hack5 this week.
Man, you look good. You and Shannon both in that makeup. If you haven't checked this out, go to HAK5.org. Look at the 20-year. Look at the 10-year-old Hack5 giving tribute to the 20-year-old movie Hackers, and you will not be disappointed.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, it's really exciting to see you, but most of all, to see Len. Len, I haven't seen you in a dog's age either.
It's been a long time, Darren. It's good to see you.
It is. It is good to see him.
It's really good to see you. I just want to let everybody know that today's, I know I say this every week, but today's art might be a total flop, or it might be the greatest thing ever.
You say that every week, Len.
It might be a total flop. I'm just getting people ready for...
I don't know. I don't think I can draw anymore. And then he comes up with, like, he tops himself every week. It's incredible.
Well, I'm just preparing people. If you're disappointed, I wouldn't blame you. But anyway, we'll see what happens.
No, I think we should go along with this, Darren, and just be like, yeah, okay, I'm not going to expect much. Maybe like a circle with a line drawn underneath it. That's all. That's my top of my expectations.
That's what may happen.
Courtesy, though. I mean, the circle requires a lot of,
It's so minimalist.
Is it going to be anti-aliased? We don't even know.
Right.
We'll see. It's going to be something.
Stay tuned and find out, folks. Meanwhile, we've got some headlines to talk about. Bloomberg cites people familiar with the matter. I love it when they use the phrase. Who says the U.S. Federal Trade Commission has reached an agreement with the U.S. Justice Department to review Google's Android business. Other tech companies accuse Google of antitrust for prioritizing its own services on Android while restricting others. Google is under similar investigations in Europe and Russia. Google accounted for 59.3% of the U.S. smartphone market in Q2, according to the IDC. Now, a couple of points here. One, the Federal Trade Commission has agreed to review the case to decide whether there's enough to investigate and whether it should lead the investigation if there is, or the Department of Justice should. That's a normal process. This could end up being them saying, we don't think there's enough to investigate, or it could turn into a full-blown investigation. The other thing is, if it does turn into an investigation, it's about not does Google have the right to bundle its products. The question is, does Google have such a predominant share of the market that when it does bundle its products, it is abusing that market power?
Indeed. My suspicion is that the Federal Trade Commission will rule that Google must provide a pop-up window asking on install whether they want their users to use the pre-installed Chrome on Android or go ahead and download Internet Explorer. We may have seen this before.
Can you imagine like the young buck who finds the Windows decision about browser choice in the EU is like, hey boss, I think I've cracked it.
It's this all over again. No, actually, in all honesty, if I'm Google, I'm more worried about the European Commission.
The European Commission has basically said you're going to be guilty. They haven't quite served the papers yet. And Russia has said the same thing. So Android is under fire there. And Android has a significant larger market share in Europe and Russia than it does in the United States. So 59.3% is right there on the line Like, some people can look at that and say that is a predominant share, and anything they do could be considered abusive. Others will say, well, that's just over half. There's plenty of other significant competitors in the marketplace, so there's plenty of competition. Don't worry about it.
Right. Well, I mean, I also wonder how much Android and AOSP and whatnot being open source gives them kind of some leeway here. You know, you didn't have that in the previous, at least in the FTC sense with the antitrust. You didn't have that with Microsoft, at least.
Yeah, and Google does allow a version of Android. You know, that could have been a remedy for Windows, right? You have to allow a version of Windows that people can customize when they sell their computers. Android can point to that and say, we already do that. There's a version of Android that anybody can use. Xiaomi takes it and uses it their way with their own services on top of ours. If Amazon takes a version of it and gets rid of our services.
Right.
So it's going to come down to abuse of market share. I think the market share is low enough in the United States that the FTC won't go after them. The same way they didn't go after them for search, because again, the market share was lower in the US than it is in Europe.
Okay, actually, this could really spin around and become a huge win for consumers if you considering Android's like dominance in the European market, and Google would just be like, well, look, you know, it's based on our platform, it's open source, we provide it to the manufacturers, they roll it the way the carriers want to implement it, and then suddenly the scrutiny is on the carriers, be like, yo, dog, why'd you lock it down so that we couldn't put the open source AOSP version on it and customize it the way we like, and then, you know, follow the connect the dots and you get open bootloaders.
Yeah, exactly. What if it's not browser choice? What if it's not email choice? What if it's operating system choice? You boot your Samsung phone for the first time and it's like, would you like the Google version of Android, the Amazon version of Android, the Xiaomi version of Android, the Cyanogen version of Android, or stock version of Android? Like, that could be amazing.
I mean, it's an ARM processor. It could run Minix with Emacs.
Totally.
Just saying.
Infinite choice. The iPhone 6s launched today. Lots of people lined up around the world. Apparently not as many as last time, but that's apparently normal for the S versions. Anyway, iFixit has a teardown. The iPhone 6s has a 1,715 milliamp hour battery, a little smaller than the 6 battery, which is 1,810 milliamp hours. The display is thicker too, about 15 grams heavier, and mostly due to the extra sensors for 3D touch. iFixit gave the iPhone 6s a repairability score of 7 out of 10.
I honestly can't see anything that exciting about this phone, but if you're an iPhone user,
3D touch.
Yay.
Could only touch in 2 dimensions before. You always had to approach your phone from the side. Now you can 3D
I mean,
touch.
you know, technically it's got a better Wi-Fi sock, so that's something to get excited about.
The Intercept published documents today detailing the UK's GCHQ operation Karma Police. GCHQ documents describe the program as the world's biggest internet data mining operation intended to eventually track, quote, every visible user on the internet. Given archive.org a run for their money as far as data collection goes. The program began tracking internet radio use, that's why it was called Karma Police, based on the Radiohead song, and expanded to logging IP addresses, cookies, email addresses, trying to uncover the user identities of certain people. Several other tools pulled additional data, like the content of the internet sessions, including web pages viewed, instant messages. Every time we've seen one of these leaks, Darren, it's been like, well, it sounds bad, but here's what they were taking, which is bad, but maybe not as bad as you thought. This one, you kind of like, wow, this is what everyone was fearing was happening, like taking all of the traffic and trying to keep it.
Right. I mean, here's the thing. If you can, then why wouldn't you, right? So everything that is available. Now, we've had this discussion many times about how an IP address does not equate to a person, and an IP address does not equate to a geographic location. However, I have to actually say, it's really cool tech. I mean, I wouldn't expect anything, you know, less from the former Bletchley Park crew. The target detection identifiers that they use are such that, no, a VPN's not going to protect you. It uses all of the identifiable information coming from your web browsing habits and sessions, including the cookies, as well as the IP address you come from, and other awesome little tidbits like your browser agent and resolution, all sorts of cool stuff. I mean, we've seen this before in Hackerland with tools like Maltego, but just to see this on like a wide scale, it's really cool and freaking scary.
Yeah. I mean, it is the natural. Obviously, they had people who are into tech doing this because the story is exactly what you said. They started by looking at radio streams and were like, well, hey, while we're looking at radio streams, we could probably get the cookies.
Well, that's
while
just
we're getting the cookies from the radio streams, we could probably get the cookies from other things, you know? And they were just like, what else can we do? And eventually they were building identity profiles.
It's the same thing with any other arms race. Yeah. It's like, well, what if we made it 50 megatons?
Yes, sadly true. BlackBerry announced Friday it will launch an Android-based phone called the Priv for privacy with a slide-out keyboard by the end of this year. The announcement came as part of an earnings call, which were disappointing, by the way. The earnings were 13 cents loss per share on revenue of $490 million. Analysts had expected a loss, but only of 9 cents per share on revenue of $600 million. The company still plans to reach profitability by Q4, and CEO John Chen told analysts, if I can't make money on the phones, I will be out of the telephone handset business. There's a timeline. I won't tell you when.
I love this. BlackBerry, yay, going all in with one last device, bringing back their epic keyboard. If it doesn't work out, it's cool. They can go enterprise middleware. We've heard talks about that before. In fact, didn't they just buy Good? So
yep.
This reminds me of the last hurrah of the smartphone. We've seen this before with Palm. I'm hoping they don't Palm Pre themselves. Otherwise, it's only 3% more that would go Android. So
I feel like John Chen has done a responsible job of building up parts of the business that are solid, and that is the enterprise security. And those parts are looking really good. They are not enough yet to make him profitable, but I think the reason he's sticking to his Q4 profitability is he has confidence in those sections of his company. I almost feel, and I don't know this at all, but I almost feel like John Chen is talking to the handset division when he says these things about if we can't make money on the phone, we'll get out of the handset business. You hear that, handset division?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I got profitable centers in this company. If you're not going to be one of them.
I think that's an interesting management technique. I'm going to illustrate. Hey, Shannon, so if the next podcast isn't epic, no more podcasts.
No, you don't name Shannon by name. You just say,
right,
we have a podcasting division here at Hack 5.
Yeah, the next co-host department.
Right, the Hack 5 co-host. I don't know if that's what is going on with John Chen. It just kind of struck me that way.
I just feel like of all of the smartphone manufacturers on Death Watch, they've got a lot more going for them as far as assets than Palm did.
Yeah.
So, and that was the last one I can remember that died that slow, terrible death.
Adobe has released Photoshop Elements version 14. The next web review says the app has been streamlined to do things like remove camera shake and haze quickly and easily. Face recognition got faster and more accurate. There's a feature called Smart Look that tailors the effects to the specific photo. It can tell if you're doing a landscape versus faces, etc. Adobe Premiere Elements 14 is also out with support for 4K. They added some motion titles. Both apps are available for OS X 10.9 and above, and Windows 7 or higher. The cost is $100 each, or you can bundle them together for $150. Are you guys editing on Premiere?
We are, yeah. We do the Creative Cloud stuff, but that's on a PC. We're not talking about the, iOS apps and whatnot.
Yeah, these are for OS X and PC as well, Windows 7.
Okay.
$99. But this is Elements. This is when you don't need to have the Creative Cloud. You don't need to have the full power of the real Photoshop or the real Elements or the real Premiere.
Right. In fact, if what you're looking for is Photoshop, this may be a little bit frustrating to you because the only thing that they share is the name. Don't expect to find like layers and alpha channels and vector tools. This is great for photography.
I do believe they have layers in Elements. I might be wrong about that.
Oh,
but
good.
You're right about like the really
last
sophisticated
time I played
stuff.
with it, it was pretty slim down.
Yeah, they've been trickling more features down, but the broad recommendation you're making is the same. It's not powerful. It's not the power of full Photoshop.
Right. Shannon was actually just asking. She's like, "Hey, how much is Premiere?" And I'm like, "Well, it's $50 a month." She's like, "No, how much if I buy it?" I'm like, "Well, one, you can't find it, and two, if you could, it costs about an Alex. At which point, you're going to need an upgrade in 2 years, and it would have just been $50 a month."
Yeah. VentureBeat reports Emmett Shear, chief executive of Amazon's Twitch division, announced that Twitch will add video uploads and playlists in 2016. Bit of an answer to the YouTube gaming service. Twitch says it has 100 million active monthly users, 1.7 million live broadcasters, and Engadget reports Twitch will roll out HTML5 video players, drop in Flash, and adding controls to HTML5 in Q2 of 2016.
How long do you think until it could actually be a true competitor to Vimeo? JK LOL number 2.
Yeah, I don't even think that's what they're going for. But I had the same thought of like, oh, I can upload to Twitch, and then I'm like, well, but they really want you to do gaming content, and I don't always cover enough gaming to qualify, and so they're really doing this for the gamers, for people who are like, hey, you want to make some game content ahead of time that's not just play through videos. We're going to make that available for you on Twitch. So it's kind of targeted to keep the existing Twitch streamers, I feel like.
You know, the gaming notwithstanding, I'm just excited that there is a head-to-head finally between anyone and YouTube. You've seen the YouTube gaming, I'm sure you've covered that, and you know, because all of those features will eventually find themselves into the other, you know, broader platform on YouTube if they are, you know, if they're necessary for everybody else. So it's good stuff.
And if you're allowing uploads, my guess is you're going to start allowing archive down the road, which is the other thing that Twitch has given over to YouTube for the time being. They have a limited archive, and I bet Twitch will have. I mean, it's freaking Amazon. They got storage, right? They just need to figure out the business plan for that.
Yep.
The American Registry for Internet Numbers, aka ARIN, gave out the last block of its IPv4 addresses this week. So that's it, North America. No more IPv4 addresses for free. Companies are encouraged to move to IPv6. What's left? Africa. Africa's Afrinic has about 2.3 million IPv4 addresses. Figure they'll last until about 2019. And then after that, ain't no more new IPv4 addresses. And they're getting expensive. If you're looking to buy from somebody who has extra ones, the price keeps going up.
Well, just think about how rich Africa can get selling off their IP4 space.
Right?
That's huge.
I mean, it's not...
You know, they could, at a certain point, they can be like, you know, thanks, Bill Gates. That was really nice of you, but we've got a pile of IPs.
Oil? Ha! We got IPv4 addresses.
Exactly. I'll sell you one. It's 127.0. Never mind.
0, yeah. I get into scam email jokes at that point. When Microsoft updated its Office apps for iOS last year, you may remember that they started allowing users to edit documents and save to the cloud without having to pay for an Office 365 subscription. At the time, that rule said that any screen larger than 10.1 inches would require a subscription, but since no iOS device had a screen that large, it didn't really matter. Well, guess what? The iPad Pro is larger, and Microsoft confirmed to Ars Technica that Office apps on the 12-inch iPad Pro will require a subscription for editing and saving. They did not talk about whether they would do auto detection or how that would work. They say they're still figuring that out. The Washington Post obtained a draft memo showing a group in President Obama's administration has explored 4 approaches tech companies could use to allow law enforcement to unlock encrypted communications. Now, it would be interesting to go through what they talked about, but the memo noted that any of those proposals that they considered would be seen as introducing backdoors. And National Security Council spokesman Mark Stroh stated in an email regarding the memo that these proposals are not being pursued because of that. The group then drew up a set of principles recommending no bulk collection of information and no golden keys for data access. So a lot of people are getting freaked out by the language of the proposals, but it seems like my reading of this is they said, look, we could try making people put a piece of hardware on the back of their thing, or we could try making them break up encryption keys into multiple places and only bring them together under court order. We could try basically building backdoors or golden keys, but if we did any of those, now that we've done our due diligence and covered them, we would run into a backlash and it would violate rights, so we're not going to do that. So I think people are getting lost in looking at the gaming of it, where they lay out what they could do because it sounds horrible. But Darren, am I wrong in thinking that they came to the right conclusion, which is we will not do any of those things?
Yes, you're right. This administration came to the right conclusion. In fact, they came up with all of the ideas how you would implement such a thing so that the next administration can say, fantastic, you've already done the legwork for us. I mean, given that it's already just a terrible idea and puts all of America at risk if such a thing were done, because it would put basically a gigantic pot where any would-be hacker would be like, oh, well, that's where the treasure trove of everything. I mean, you're thinking OPM would be just a walk in the park in comparison. I say if the government wants your device, you're protected by the Fourth Amendment. And if they come back with a warrant, well, then you're protected by the Fifth. And if they try to force devices and services to use compromised encryption technology, well, if we get to that point, simply don't use that. Don't use crippled tech. You think about like some of the stuff that they proposed was just asinine. Hardware ports to dump memory. Actually, that's actually already in existence and is already used by forensics investigators. They just would make it be easier. The number two way was doing an automatic software update. That's a terrible idea because it's like, okay, cool, we went into this guy's phone, we're going to send a software update to him. Well, then you've trained an entire culture of people like, oh no, don't install the software updates, then the government's going to get you. And then we're even more vulnerable as a society. The proxy keys is like a can of worm all in of itself, which would basically create a gigantic honeypot. And the fourth is my favorite because it's just like, what are you thinking? Uploading unencrypted copies of the data to backup servers? Who's going to host these backup servers? Where are they going to be? How are you going to transport them? It's just terrible on so many levels. They're all backdoors.
And I get that, but if I am trying to prove to someone who thinks it's a good idea that it's a bad idea, this is the memo I write. That's the only thing that struck me is that I show, like, here's a horrible idea, and this is how it would work. And here's a horrible idea, and this is how that would work. Like, we thought of ideas, boss. It's not like we didn't think it through, but they're all horrible, and we shouldn't do any of them.
And I'm sure Oppenheimer could have just written a giant spec sheet and said, this is how I would do it, but it's a terrible idea. And they'd say, oh, look at this
come on.
idea.
Like the next administration couldn't have figured all this stuff out?
The next administration might just have a different agenda, is the thing.
No,
so the technology
the agenda seems to be pretty much the same.
Don't confuse the technology with the policy.
Right. No. But I'm just saying, like, part of convincing someone something is a bad idea is describing how it works. That's all.
Right. Well, I would hope if such a thing were to be a consideration by any administration, that it would be something that would be like a cornerstone of our democratic process, by which allowing us to, say, vote the right party in that would not go down this terrible road. Because just the fact that we're acknowledging this terrible road existing is scary enough.
Now, you mentioned the Fifth Amendment as one of your defenses against this. The Fifth Amendment has a posse, and they got a win today. T-Glass 1976 noted the Ars Technica article that U.S. District Judge Mark Kearney of Pennsylvania ruled Wednesday that the Fifth Amendment prevents forcing individuals in this case to turn over their passcode for a mobile phone. Judge Kearney determined that the passcode was not a business record, but a personal thought process, and therefore the defendants did not have to give over their passcodes. The case involves the SEC investigating former Capital One data analysts for insider trading. Thank you, T-Glass, for submitting that at dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com. Get in there and vote, folks. Let us know what you want us to talk about, because today we're going to talk about U.S. District Judge Mark Kearney of Pennsylvania's decision. And that's a look at the headlines. Now, there's a lot more going on to this than just the win for the defendants not to hand over their passcode. Whenever there's these kinds of decisions, right, there's always more to it than just, a win for passcodes.
Right.
So let me walk you through what happened in the case, and then we can talk about what we actually won and what might still have to be fought for. The government was looking for evidence that these two employees, Bonin and Nan Huang, used information they derived while at Capital One to turn $150,000 into $2.8 million. Here's the key that the case turned on. They had created the passcodes for their mobile phones. They used their mobile phones themselves, even though they were provided by work. And Capital One had a policy that said, do not tell us what your password is, because that will be more secure. As long as you are the only one who knows, then your phone will be more secure. So the government said, well, on these two phones, which are in the possession of Capital One, but are still under the passwords that Capital One doesn't know, we think there are business records. And we think that the Huangs, when they were employees of Capital One, were corporate custodians of information, and therefore the Fifth Amendment would not apply, because when you're talking about corporate custodians, you don't get the self-incrimination defense. Now, the defendants, the Wongs, said, wait a minute, the passcodes are personal. The corporation told us never to tell them the passcodes. Therefore, it's personal information. And so we won't share that. We're not corporate custodians of our passwords, so we're not going to give those over. The government then argued, well, even if that's true, we're going to call upon something called the foregone conclusion doctrine. This is where it gets a little legal trickery. The Fifth Amendment doesn't allow you to not comply with a court order when the testimonial part of complying with a court order is a foregone conclusion. So in other words, if they're saying take off that shirt so we can show the court what it says, you can't say, no, I have Fifth Amendment right not to take off my shirt. They're like, look, we can see this shirt. It's a foregone conclusion what's going to happen. So the government said, look, we know these guys owned the phones. We know they had passcodes for the phone. It's a foregone conclusion that they know how to unlock these phones. We're not revealing any information by getting them to do that. The U.S. District Judge Mark Carney of Pennsylvania said, no, sorry, government, you missed the mark. You can only show foregone conclusion if there was evidence on the phones. You can't just say, we want them to have the passcodes to show that it's their phones. What you're saying is we want to have the passcodes so we can show there were documents on the phones. And from the decision, Judge Carney said, the SEC has no evidence any documents it seeks are actually located on the work-issued smartphones or that those documents exist at all. We find, as the SEC is not seeking business records, but instead the passcodes, that the passcodes are the defendant's personal thought process, and the defendants may properly invoke their Fifth Amendment right. Since the passcodes to the defendant's work-issued smartphones are not corporate records, the act of producing their passcode is testimonial in nature. It's not evidence. It's not a foregone conclusion. And the defendants properly invoke their Fifth Amendment privilege. The foregone conclusion doctrine does not apply. And the SEC motion to compel the passcodes was denied because of that. So, Darren, here's the question. The judge said the passcode itself can't be is testimonial in nature. They would have had to show that there was other evidence on the phone, that they had evidence that the files existed on the phone. There's even previous cases where if you could show that the files were on the phone, you didn't need the passcode because you could show the files were on the phone. Constitutional scholar Orrin Kerr, writing in the Washington Post, said, well, so all you have to do is say, we don't need you to tell us the passcode, just compel them to enter it.
Right. On the case of knowing that the files are on the phone, that becomes more difficult with full disk encryption, which is more and more the default now, which is good, because then you can't use that foregone conclusion kind of thing. I would love to, just on a real quick technical bit on that side, I would wish that also, in addition to just doing full disk encryption on smartphones, that we would get sort of like how TrueCrypt had the plausible deniability feature of having multiple passcodes, one passcode that would decrypt a version of your phone that just has My Little Pony photos on it. So going back to what you were saying, though, I feel like it was a really good call, the employer having a policy to not know those passwords. And actually, every employer should have that sort of thing. And actually, we can look at you can't be compelled to provide something that you don't have in that instance. A really good example of this is even like LavaBit. In the case of national security letters, they couldn't even provide decryption keys that they didn't have, and they weren't willing to go as far as to dupe users into giving them those surreptitiously for the government.
No, I remember that case because they're like, so could you just phish your users then and make them, trick them? And that was ridiculous.
Right, and so what you're talking about is the difference between key disclosure versus mandatory decryption. And here in the United States, for the last 226 years, we have had that epic constitution, and you go constitution. More countries need something like that because it really varies as far as key disclosure or mandatory decryption. For example, in the United Kingdom, the Regulatory Investigatory Power, or the Regulation of Investigatory Powers Act of 2000 makes it so that failure to disclose your encryption keys essentially will land you in jail, and there have been a couple of accounts of this actually, including teenagers ending up with prison sentences. You'll find the same thing in Australia and Canada. India's got a 7-year prison sentence for this. The Netherlands is interesting about this in that they have the mandatory decryption. However, it doesn't apply to the suspect. So it applies to, like, I guess, the suspect's neighbors or somebody else familiar with their devices, maybe their systems administrators, but not them themselves.
Or they saw the Post-it note before he ate it.
Right, exactly, right? So, but it's actually really interesting. We always talk about, like, how much more teeth the EU has than the FTC and stuff like that. And then this is a weird turnabout where actually here in the States we have more protection than a lot of other places in the world when it comes to key disclosure law or mandatory decryption.
Yeah, and there was a 2012 federal appeals court case with a child porn suspect saying that decrypting a password-protected hard drive would amount to a Fifth Amendment violation. So there's even a little bit of precedent that you couldn't be compelled to enter and decrypt your hard drive as well. So I think this is far from settled law. The only time the Supreme Court has ruled on anything close to this was in regarding to safes, to actual wall safes, saying you can't not be compelled to give over the combination to your safe. That would violate the Fifth Amendment. A district court denied a government request for all passwords from U.S. versus Kirshner in 2010, saying that the passwords were analogous to a safe combination, and they cited U.S. versus Hubble, the Supreme Court decision about safe combinations. So the Supreme Court might rule that way on passwords someday and make this all simpler, but right now you probably don't have to give over your password. Somebody might be able to compel you legally to enter your password, and if you refused, you might be in violation of the law. But it's leaning towards saying you don't need to give over your password if it would be self-incriminating.
Right. No, and just don't, because until that precedent is absolutely set, and I feel it is, but until it is, fight that one, because you got a damn good chance of winning. And I feel like it's also important to point out that the circumstances shouldn't matter. Whether it's suspected child pornography or insider training, the employer, the circumstances, those shouldn't matter. And ultimately, also keep in mind that while the law prevents you from self-incriminating, there's nothing that prevents the law enforcement from attempting to decrypt your device without your consent, which is why laptops get imaged at border crossings, because you can give the laptop back to someone and then keep trying your offline dictionary attack or whatever have you in perpetuity afterwards. So that's another case for using strong encryption.
It's easy to get confused by the nature of the accusation, right? When someone says this person was accused of child porn, but they were not forced to give over their password to decrypt their hard drive because of the Fifth Amendment, you're like, well, that sucks. Except, what if the person accused of having child porn didn't?
Right.
And you'd say, well, why wouldn't he decrypt his hard drive? Well, he shouldn't have to, right? What we're talking about is, what if you were accused of having child porn on your hard drive? You knew you didn't on your hard drive, but you also knew you had things on your hard drive that you did not believe that law enforcement had any business looking into, and you didn't want to decrypt that hard drive, and you thought you could win your court case without having to decrypt that hard drive. Would you want to be forced to decrypt it and reveal all of those other pictures of you and your wife to law enforcement? You shouldn't have to. That's what this is about. This isn't about the person who's guilty trying to get away with something. This is about the person wrongfully accused being able to have a proper defense. That's what laws are for.
It should be no surprise then why Julian Assange is accused of such things, of child pornography and things of that nature. That's kind of like the first go-to. I'm really surprised that Snowden didn't get it as well. Some of the early misdirection was actually about his stripper girlfriend. Who cares? Yeah, and actually we should be really thankful, at least here in the States, that we have this sort of thing. An example from one of the times that the right to powers were used against a citizen in the United Kingdom was a programmer crossing borders that was trying to get his startup off the ground, and he just so happened to be schizophrenic. And so he was just like, no, those are decryption keys. You don't give those to anyone, and was very adamant about it. And so then he went to prison, and then after that they put him in a home. So that really sucks, because otherwise this person may have had a very successful career in computer programming.
Yeah, if you're arguing if you're arguing against allowing people to, defend their right not to decrypt hard drives without, a proper suspicion or whatever, you're arguing against the Fifth Amendment. It's pretty much as simple as that.
Or you could go with Ken from Chicago's argument, which is that if you don't give up your privacy, the terrorist pedophiles will win.
Yeah, that's usually the other argument.
All
right, our pick of the day comes from Damien. We'll lighten the mood a little bit. He recently replaced his old sound mixer when it was damaged by a storm, researched for weeks, and settled on the Yamaha AG06 mixing console. It's a little 2XLR port, 4-channel mixer. It's got quarter-inch jacks and mini jacks. Says it functions as a USB sound card, has preset modes for podcasting, game streaming, and instrument/vocal music recording. My use, he says, is for adjusting game sound, voice chat, mic gain while gaming. It supports standard computer headsets with mic as well as studio mics. This is the only unit less than $900 Australian I found that was able to do everything I wanted. At $225, he says it was a bargain to me. And you can get it in the US, you can get it in the UK as well. It's a nice little mixer. If you're looking for a portable one, you can throw in a laptop bag or just an inexpensive one to be able to do a little sound mixing, a little game streaming. You're going to take advantage of that Twitch upload thing and you want to record stuff. You might want to check this out, Yamaha AG06. I always used Behringer for
that. Actually, I was just looking for one of these. And
nice.
Found, hey, if it's good enough for him. But also, wow, I didn't realize that that the dollar in Australia had gotten that $900. It's $200 here. I'm not rubbing it in. I'm just saying, wow.
No, it's 200. He found 225 Australian.
Oh,
but he said everything else he looked for was $900.
Oh, okay. That makes way more sense.
Yeah. Hey, send us your picks, folks. Feedback at dailytechnewsshow.com. You can find my picks at dailytechnewsshow.com/picks. A few emails to get to here. Gary, I now officially can't visit China ever. Hint, hit, Rudd says, I was listening to your news about leaked fingerprint data. Just thought I'd share with you my 2 cents on the danger of stolen fingerprints. The problem is if we enter a country or countries that possess that data, fingerprint scans are very common at borders, visa applications, etc. Now, people trying to get into a country, I don't know, maybe China, can immediately be identified as someone who worked for the feds directly or a contractor with clearance because their fingerprints were in that OPM stolen database. Therein lies the real problem. You can fake your identity and passport, but not your fingerprints. I mean, you can. It's harder, though.
Good catch.
Yeah.
Like the way he thinks.
Rob from Indefinable Vallejo, California, says, I just wanted to add my own thoughts about your discussion regarding the announcement of multiple streaming companies getting on board with VR. We're talking about Netflix, Hulu, etc., Vimeo. Right now, when I fly, I have to stare down at an iPad screen for hours on end. The result of this is a sore neck after about an hour. Wouldn't it be better if I downloaded some movies to my phone, put on my Gear VR, hooked up my noise-canceling headphones, and then just sit back and relax? It's like being in my own extremely cramped theater. The Oculus DK2 already has a program that does this, with services like Amazon Prime making their shows available offline. I think this could really work. P.S. Go Cubs. You have to say that part, I'm your boss. He couldn't possibly mean the baseball team because that would just
obviously not.
No, what do you think? Gear VR on a plane sounds genius the way he describes it.
Dude, metaverse it up. I'm down.
Yeah.
Although I'm just really upset now that the Note 5 doesn't have Gear VR. What?
And then, no, it will on the new one.
Oh.
All Samsung 2015 models will work with the new Gear VR that comes out later this year.
Good, because I was just reading that it was only going to be for the S6, so that's exciting news.
Yeah. No, the announcement yesterday was it'll work with all 2015 model Galaxy phones.
See, this is why you're the Tech News podcaster.
It's an occupational hazard. Yesterday we talked about the British Columbia spare hard drive with a backup of student data that went all the way back to, if I remember right, 2008. Yesterday we wondered, why would they need to hold the data that far back? And we got an email from Sterling, who says, I work in a government body here in Canada under a branch called Records and Retention. Essentially, every record type has varying retention policies, a storage data and a destruction date. The base retention usually starts at 2 years and goes up from there. Like adoption, for instance, exceeds the lifetime of the individual. That you keep that forever. This was easy to manage in the days of paper. A date was stamped on a filing box, and you destroyed the box once the destruction date was reached. With digital systems, it's a bit more complicated. Deleting rows from a database is risky, as broken joins can often cause some systems to crash. The government doesn't pay enough to get adequately trained employees, and most backup operations are outsourced. So the long story short, these records probably should have been destroyed, but the structure of government and the lack of adequate knowledge in the appropriate roles and essentially unaudited outsourcers make this sort of thing almost inevitable. And then Kimberly, the Texas teacher, says, at several workshops here in the United States, we were told that schools were required to keep records for 25 years after the student would have been scheduled to graduate. The reason was lawsuits. She lists malpractice, discrimination as examples of lawsuits they would want to be prepared for. So first graders this year, she says, their records will be held until 2052. That's 37
also, you figure
years.
when you're applying for, secret and top secret or even public trust, they're going to try to pull your permanent record.
Now, we had somebody write in and say they were getting a background check, and their high school records had to get pulled. So,
well, you figure if GCHQ can just keep a copy of everything, and hard drives are so cheap, why
it's the
even
ultimate
delete
cloud
the data?
service, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that is it for this episode of Daily Tech News Show. Thank you, Darren Kitchen. Good to have you back, man.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
HAK5.org. What's been happening over there?
Probably stuff and things. I don't remember.
You've been keeping the world safe for cats on the internet. I know that.
But you know what? We're doing simple file encryption. We're doing easy ways to encrypt files using Keybase, both on Windows and Linux. So if you haven't started encrypting volumes, you should probably check that out. It's the easy, social, simple way to do this kind of stuff and have it be secure and based on open standards like PGP as well. Otherwise, we did a 20-year anniversary special about the movie Hackers, so check that out, because turns out, despite all of the 90s cyberpunk goodness and rollerblades, there's actually a lot of hacker lore and trivia and mythos in it. So
I love this. I love you guys doing breakdowns of the reality behind the movie. That was really, really fascinating. Like the part about they went and lifted real names from folks on the internet and used them as the hacker names in the movie. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Now I got to go down to Mountain View and check out that 8,000-pound calculator, the difference engine.
Yeah.
Not the book. I'm talking about the Charles Babbage.
No, the actual replica of the difference engine.
The replica.
I saw that at a Maker Faire, I think, one year. Freaking impressive.
Rad.
Really cool. So yeah, please do Mr. Robot eventually.
Oh,
just, give us a tech read of it.
With the USB rubber ducky, and we're just working with their technical directors on the Pineapple-y goodness in the next season. So there you go.
Very exciting. Mr. Len Peralta has been working hard. Len, I think you just have your phone screen up. You need to show us your illustration.
No, it's funny. This doesn't look like I worked really hard on it, but it's really this took me longer than it usually does.
Wait a minute. The letters under the numbers aren't the normal ABC.
Yeah,
under the two, it says
dialing T9. I'm trying to text
it says,
somebody.
Make me give you my code. Dick move. What?
It's not the red. You got to look closely at this one. It's not really obvious as most of my art is. This is more of kind of a graphic design sort of thing. So
this is fantastic. This is the kind of thing you'll want to put up in your cube or in your office or up in your home, and people are like, "Oh, a poster of a hold on. What does that say?"
It's very interesting. Yes, it's a little bit different, a little bit of a departure. But I thought that this one needed something a little bit different. So,
clever.
Thank you.
Yeah. And no digital vomit this time.
No digital vomit, none at all. This is just it's just plain iOS 9 goodness with a little bit of tweaking by me. So.
If the chat room's any judge, it's going over well. People are laughing their butts off.
Very good. Yes, and just so you know, it's in my store right now over at lenperaltastore.com. And if you want to get this print as a digital print, back me at Patreon, patreon.com/Len. So.
Thank you, Len. Excellent, as always. Thank you, bosses, the folks who support the show. we could not do this without you. It's listener funded. If you're listening or you're watching and you would like to support the show, help us out. If you get a little value out, all we ask is a little value back. dailytechnewsshow.com/support. Our email address is feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. You can give us a call, 512-59-DAILY. That's 593-2459. Listen to the show live Monday through Friday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern at player.alphageekradio.com and visit our website, dailytechnewsshow.com. Back on Monday with Veronica Belmont. Thanks all. Talk to you then.
This show is part of the Frog Pants Network. Get more at frogpants.com.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
That was just a good, solid show, you guys.
That was a good show.
Well done.
Yeah.
I thought so too.
I love it. I love the art, Len.
Oh, Len, you just killed it.
Thank you.
Like, everybody in the chat room is loving
It doesn't look like it took me that long. The words, I don't know. I just kept like working it out to see if there was something, good, and it that took me like much longer than just drawing something.
Yeah,
Well,
it's funny
but
how that
also-
works, huh?
I mean, Tom, you should be happy. You got your circles in there. You got several, in fact.
True.
There's an underline.
There is an underline under
emergency.
emergency and
Yeah. There is?
cancel.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got everything I wanted and more. He again overachieved.
And a little bit of naughtiness too.
What should we call this episode?
Dick move.
Don't lock me down, dog. Android clearly has a monopoly. Sent from my iPhone. Well played.
50 megatons of cookies.
You know what? I feel like the IPv4 apocalypse. You should save that one for in about 3 years from now.
From 2019, yeah.
Yeah, for when we were talking about like, Africa. They've been mining the IP addresses for quite a while. They ran out.
GCHQ did it all for the cookie.
Oh my gosh, that's actually kind of good.
That's a Patrick Norton joke.
Don't facepalm for yourself. Blackberry's got a blackberry.
Chen got a Chen. Blackberry got a Blackberry. If the handset business doesn't turn around, we'll get out of it. I wish that
will turn
translated.
this podcast around.
I will turn this division around. Still levelating. You got time to vote.
Yeah. Android clearly has a monopoly sent from my iPhone.
Oh, you go, Constitution. I like that one.
No. We should do a Hack 5 special on the Constitution.
Hacking the Constitution?
No, using it. Making shit.
Well, using it is sometimes the same as hacking it.
Yeah, I know, right?
I mean, that's the looking at the framer's intent, right?
Oh. Mm-hmm. I don't want to give it away, but I've got a fun troll on UK viewers involving encryption for an episode upcoming, so I think you'll get a kick out of it.
Cool. I'll keep an eye out. No more IPv4. No more IPv4.
I don't know, man. I'm going to start selling off all of my 192.168s. Anybody want them?
Yeah. That's like you're outside the stadium and they're like, "No, man, we got the same stuff as they have inside, just cheaper." Check it out. Check out these 192.168s.
Yeah. No, seat number 192 is great.
Yeah. No, these are legit.
No, you can see right through the gnat hole right there. See, there's a little. Just go up to the. Just peep in.
No. It's totally legit. Yeah. This will work. So I bought this IP address. It doesn't seem to be working. We have not decided on a title yet. I think I want to go. You go Constitution. Android clearly has a monopoly. Sent from my iPhone is funnier, but it's a little bit long.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I'm gonna.
Yeah. I didn't realize that last year was the 225-year anniversary of the Constitution. This is like
Missed it.
realizing that 2013 was the 30-year anniversary of War Games. Now I got to wait around another, 3 years to do a special.
Right. Well, if you only had a calendar of the tech history that you could refer to.
Oh, where would I get such a chronology of it? In fact, would be really nice and handy.
The book is called The Year in Tech History. It's available at TomMerrittBooks.com.
Oh, that's fantastic. Who is it authored by, Tom Merritt?
Well, it's by Tom Merritt and illustrated by Scott Johnson.
That sounds like a fantastic read. Where would I pick up such an amazing piece of bookly goodness?
At TomMerrittBooks.com or wherever books are sold.
What's happening right now?
Don't interrupt our infomercial, Jenny.
Come on,
We only have 3 left. Call this number.
So Mr. Robot's pretty good.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm hearing good stuff. I haven't watched it yet, but I've hung out with the technical directors, and it's interesting to hear that the writers on the show actually follow their lead than the other way around.
Yeah,
so
you
rather
can
than
tell.
here's the premise of the story, we need you to insert some tech that's going to fit this, and they're like, well, it's going to be a stretch. They're like, well, here's what we can do, and then the writers are like, ooh, what if we use that element and tie it in with this element and make the characters do that?
Good. It's on
That's-
Hulu.
you can
Good.
tell.
I'll be watching that.
That makes a difference because everything they do, even when they fudge, you're like, well, that would have just been longer and more boring if they'd actually gone the full yard. The stuff that they get right is so impressive.
Yeah. No, and in fact, actually reviewing Hackers for this 20-year special that we just did made me really realize how far the industry has come in terms of hacking and ways portrayed in media. And this is coming from the experience of having worked with technical directors on Silicon Valley and now also on Mr. Robot, and realizing there's a massive difference is what happens when you actually have the story follow the text instead of the other way around.
Yeah.
Although to Hackers' credit, I think they did a good job of just completely abstracting it and just being like, look, we're not even going to show that. We're going to make it a visual, fun thing so that it kind of I guess makes it last the test of time a little longer, because it never was. Because if we saw 1990s era tools, they would just be even more laughable today.
Right.
I'm going to get him with a sin ping or whatever, and yeah, no.
Well, so could you do what you did with Hackers for the series, Mr. Robot? Could you provide I like the idea of you doing technical reads where you're like, hey, this is the stuff they got right, this is the stuff that's not exactly right, and this is the stuff that's totally wrong.
Yeah.
And just explaining it. That would be so fun.
Violet Blue actually just did this.
She did? For
yeah.
Mr. Robot?
Yeah, Google Mr. Robot
okay.
Violet Blue is around the time of DEF CON, and basically it broke down all of the tools that they actually use, so the Metasploits.
I want my friends Darren and Shannon to do it, but...
Okay, well,
she already did
Darren
it.
and Shannon can do it. I just need to watch the damn show first.
Yeah.
I guess I'm going to have to, torrent it or something because I don't have a TV, but...
Here's another
They said
reason
that
why
they
you
actually
should
use
hate
the
Time
torrents
Warner
as,
Cable. Yeah.
Huh?
Another reason you should hate Time Warner Cable is I can't watch Mr. Robot through Hulu on my Apple TV.
Oh, yeah, so she's got a gallery where she
Yes.
goes through the different hacks. Right,
Much
right.
different.
I'm thinking of something more either
Yeah.
episodic or similar to what you did with the Hackers movie.
Maybe actually I can just work it into Hack 5, where we can just dissect some of the stuff and redo it in the real world.
Yeah, pull out bits from it.
Right.
That's cool.
That
yeah.
actually would be kind of cool. Thanks for the idea.
Yeah, I'm just selfishly want to see it, so that's why. I just want you guys to explain it.
Well,
So
I'm not
then
gonna
we can
come to
refer
that
to it on
question
Cord
because I was
Killers.
told they-
Then we can refer to it on Cord Killers and be like, we know how this works now, thanks to Hack 5. Go watch Hack 5.
Oh, are you guys watching that one on Cord Killers?
We did, yeah. We watched it when it was as they were coming out. Actually.
Right. I heard that the final episode didn't come out or something.
No, it did. It was delayed a week though because of the shooting of the news reporter. Which
okay.
is not a spoiler, but there is an event in
Well,
the
it's
finale.
a spoiler in a weird way for me because you know that I try not to know those.
Well,
things,
right,
but,
sure.
You know,
basically all that happened was a real world event was not the same as what was in the finale, but it was close enough that they were just extra sensitive and like, you know what, we're not going to show that this week. We're going to hold off a week.
It's not like 24 and Jack Bauer versus the 9/11 events.
No. I don't think so.
Or at least that's how I remember it through my fuzzy memory.
I never watched 24, so...
Yeah, I regrettably did.
Good show.
I know, Len. I know.
Well, the first season's good.
I liked it when they had the director
first 12 hours?
from La Femme Nikita doing some stuff.
You know, it's funny. Chloe, Mary Lynn Rajka, was she's in town shooting a movie or something.
You should have her over. Play some NBA.
I was like, yeah. So I was like, come on over. Oh,
you know,
man.
show
Actually,
her some Cleveland hospitality.
I might watch Bat Kid Begins tonight. We'll see.
Oh boy, get out the tissues.
I know. I wanted this. I know what to expect. I want to see it. It looks really great.
Scary stuff.
Did you see it?
No, I covered it when it was happening from Yahoo Santa Monica, and like we didn't know about it because it wasn't on any of like the what's happening today things, and it just started happening, and it was so awesome that all work at Yahoo halted so that we could all watch Bat Kid running around San Francisco, and we're like the whole office just bawling because it was so cool. So
I can't wait to see it.
I need to watch it like alone in a room or something because it's gonna get real.
I need a good documentary.
Yeah, that's a good one.
So,
the other one that I really have been enjoying are the Chef's Table ones, which is just like crazy high-level cooking stuff.
Chef's Table?
Yeah.
Documentaries?
That's on Netflix, Chef's Table.
Oh,
and
okay.
The first one is just this nutty, super delicious Italian chef who makes like, you know, high-class versions of Grandma's cooking.
Nice. I'll have to check that out, too.
That sounds good.
I still have to make it through Rick and Morty. I want to watch.
Oh, yeah. That's worth it.
Yeah.
It's good. We just watched the first season of Utopia, the Channel 4 TV series.
That is a great show. Where did you find it?
So someone wrote an email to us because we liked Mr. Robot and said, if you like the cinematography of that and the writing and the twisting plot, you've got to watch Utopia. And we're like, okay, but how do we watch it? It's not available for streaming, et cetera, et cetera. Right. And the next day in my post office box, awesome guy from Austin had FedExed overnight 2 Blu-rays of Utopia.
Oh, wow. It's
one
a great
for me
show.
And one for Brian Brushwood, who'd stay in here. And so Brian and I just binged on it. We watched all 6 episodes this week.
Yeah, it's a great show. I watched it via there was like a hack on Chrome where you could make it seem like you're in another country.
Oh, we're using like Ola or something.
Something like that, yeah. And so then I was able to watch it, but it was sort of spotty. It was didn't really work all the time. But what we did see was just fantastic. That's a great show, man.
Where is Jessica Hyde?
Just the opening scene of that show is just fantastic.
Yeah, it's
fantastic.
It's good.
I love the cinematography. Is that what Mr. Robot looks like that?
No, it's not. It doesn't have those comic book colors like Mr. Robot. But the idea is like you have this distinctive color palette, Mr. Robot, that's so well suited to it, and it's just like Utopia has its own color palette.
All right. Okay. Yeah, I've heard a lot of people talk about Mr. Robot, so I'll have to check it out. I'm gonna go get some dinner. And
Yay!
Yeah, I'm gonna go get some current week.
No spaghetti. There's only like 3 people here because everybody's gone.
You can still have spaghetti when there's only 3 people.
I know, but I'm not gonna sit and make a huge dinner for 3 people.
Well, you could FedEx the remainder to Tom and I.
Yeah, exactly.
Overnight.
Thank you.
It'll
Good
be in
idea.
his little.
Yeah, and some DVDs.
PO box. It'll be kind of messy, but it'll be delicious.
Pack it in dry ice. It'll be fine. All right. Thanks, everybody, for watching. We'll see you on Monday.
Bye.
Bye.
And listening.